And thanks for coming in to assist. And we have taken so much time to sort out this issue. Colleagues, greetings from me. It is the afternoon here in South Africa, and I think in the whole of Africa. And as we are using the Central African time, good afternoon. My name is Khulekani Magwaza. I'm based in South Africa as the coordinator of the WYCJ Africa Front. And I also work with the youth NGOs here in South Africa and in the continent. So I've been listening to the other sessions since this morning from the South Asia and the rest of the colleagues who have done a lot of work in terms of facilitation and a very good discussion in terms of the climate change and the laws and human rights. So in this session, we will also have a very unique topic for ourselves here. And we have, fortunately, all of our speakers here, unfortunately or unfortunately, we don't know something there. All of our speakers are the youth, are in the youth category, and they are experts in their own field of studies, and also in their discipline in terms of, activism within the climate justice space. But before I welcome and introduce the speakers, I would like to send an apology on behalf of Mr. Ahmed Fathi from Cairo, Egypt. He sent me a message saying that he is having difficulties to join us. So he was one of our speakers here. He said that he's unable to join because of connectivity problems, but also because of the location where he is at currently, as he was hoping that he was going to join us. And so welcome everyone from anywhere in the world where you are, and welcome to our Africa session. The topic for today is climate change and human rights in the context of non-economic losses and damages. And obviously, we have specific questions for our speakers. We have one question for each speaker, but after that question, we will be interested to also hear their perspectives in terms of their domestic or national laws on environment or climate change. And we will do that so that we can hear their thought, as we want to have a very good law in terms of achieving climate justice. So let us dive into our program, which I would like to share. Let me check, am I able to share the screen? No? Yes. As you can see my screen, the program is very short. I've just done the welcoming, and then I will just introduce our speakers, and then after that I will introduce the theme, what the theme means and what's the aim of the theme and so on. And then after that I will just invite the speakers to give us the talks, and we do the questions and answers and ways forward and closure. So this is our program here. Right. So our first speaker will be, so I'm just doing the introduction now. After introducing you guys, I will just invite you to put on your mics and say hi and tell us where you are right now. You might be, you might not be where we think you are. So we have, the first speaker will be Helvi from Namibia. Helvi is the regional coordinator for the Youth Network, CAADP, and she is a Namibian farmer and entrepreneur who holds a bachelor degree in agriculture and is currently pursuing her master's degree in academic leadership and management at University of Zambia. So the club that she is coordinating has 200 members who are proactively dynamic in their communities, most being small-scale farmers that produce for their households and populate in their vicinities, while some being qualified qualified as agriculturalist. So Helvi, may I invite you to put on your mic and maybe say hi to our attendees here, and you can just tell us where you are connecting us from.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Kule, for the invitation. To be part of this discussion, to engage with everyone, and to indulge on a very pertinent topic such as this one, and to really speak on the context of the desertification or the expansion of the desert, of the Namibian desert, and the issues of climate change and how this has affected Namibia as a whole over the recent years. So myself, I am speaking from Namibia, in fact in the northern part of the country, where also when I do my presentation or my talk, I will also speak a little bit about the climate challenges we are facing, especially in the northern part of the country where I am currently based. So again, thank you very much, and I think it is a very good discussion, and I look forward to engaging everyone and all the participants. Thank you, Kole.
Thank you very much for that. And we have Abel, who is a Mozambican environmental and climate justice activist, and is also from the negotiator under the UNFCCC. We all know what UNFCCC is. Abel is the executive director of the Youth Vision and country lead of the African Youth Commission. Abel also coordinated the civil society platform on climate change and involved in different environmental and climate justice programs. Before I invite you, Abel, to put on your mic and tell us where you are connecting us from and how are you today, I want to say, these bios for me, because I know both of you, they feel like they have limited you because you are much more than what is written here. So yeah, Abel, you can just let us know where you are connecting us from.
Hello guys, accept our greetings from Maputo City. Maputo City is capital of Mozambique. I like to be sure. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes,
yes, we can.
Okay, good. Yes, accept our greetings from Maputo City. Maputo City, capital of Mozambique. I'm here right now, is where I'm based at managing all programs from this headquarters. So I think from now I'll start. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so before I go on, I forgot to inform all the participants that we have an interpretation. So at the bottom of our screen, you will see something like the map of the world, or the map. Then if you click there, you can choose the language of your choice. Unfortunately, we have English and French. And apologies to Brother Abel. We had this discussion before we got in here that we only have English and French and not Portuguese and other languages as we would wish to. So apologies for that. Okay, colleagues, let us just dive into our topic today. And let me introduce you to this topic. And it's I said at the beginning that it is a very unique topic simply because we know that the topic of loss and damage on its own has just been accelerated from COP27 of the UNFCCC a few months ago in Egypt. It was accelerated, but only on the basis that there will be a special, I would say in my own language, a special program for financing this topic. And before I talk about our topic today, we all know that the issue of human rights and loss and damage has been the topic since the climate talks started years ago. And human rights, obviously, it is something that should be considered in all the streams. It's a cross-cutting issue, and it's the same as loss and damage. Although we are dealing within the UNFCCC processes, we're dealing with mainly with the issues of mitigation and adaptation. But now recently we are happy that loss and damage is now there as something that could be on its own and that could be implemented as a standing item. And one thing that has not really, in our impression, most of us here in Africa, that has not really been considered as very important was the implications of the non-economic losses, which I will explain a bit. And so the implications that are always at the topic, because there are so many evidences thereof, are issues when there is a shrinking economy, or for instance, when there is a cyclone that just destroys the infrastructure of one country, and you could see maybe the GDP of a country going down because of that, and so on and so on. So those are the things that are always at the discussion, because there are measures of, there are tools to measure those impacts, and also there are evidences of that. But when it comes to, for instance, and that is my first point, when it comes to the unquantifiable climate change impact, such as the negligence in respect of the cultural loss, heritage, and religious rights, and these, the losses or the changes which are forced by climate change impact. And I'll give you just an example. When climate change, for instance, strike, if there is a flooding, and I'm not going to go too much because I want our speakers to also have a chance to speak, and maybe I can just come after. But if you look at, for instance, at issues of access to water, access to healthy water for human consumption, which is a human right, you would find that we would not have access to it, and that is an implication that is caused by climate change. But also it can be tried. We can lay a criminal complaint, for instance, in some domestic court. And one of the examples I can make was in April 2022, last year, when the flooding happened in South Africa, killing more than 430 people. A group of NGOs went to court and laid a criminal complaint against the government on the negligence that they said, you should have done something to prevent this, right? And so, and then the case obviously could not go on because the evidences are not quantifiable, right? And so it goes on to even talking about our religious rights, and we cannot practice anything else as we used to practice within our practice, in as much as the religious rights are concerned. And then also there is an example on omission in respect of climate legal frameworks, and this is very simple, especially for people that understand law. So if you are committing to do something, or you have signed, you have demonstrated your commitment within the law or within a particular legal framework that you will do something, and you will take an action as you are required. But at the end of the day, we realize that you did not do something, and then that can be you can be prosecuted under the laws, right? And so many times within, let me just say, within the climate talks, we miss this talk to say that if we are not taking action as a matter of urgency, we're losing everything else that we can identify with, especially indigenous people, right? But not only indigenous people, people that still believe in identity as something that relates to the heritages and some religious rights. And so, yeah. And then the last thing that I can make an example, just to also amplify this topic, is the significance in impacts that are not immediately noticeable, right? And so there is within our laws, and again, I'm just speaking from my perspective, from knowing the domestic laws here in South Africa, there's something that is called complicity, whatever, and it can also be tried in the court of law. So these are the laws where one has done something that leads to something that is a crime, or that can complicate our laws, right? So if someone, for instance, encourages, or someone is empowering, or is doing something that would cause someone to die, or someone to be limited in terms of their constitutional right, then that can also be tried in the court of law. But again, because of the lack of the tools to gather all these things to form evidences, then it makes things very hard for us to actually make sure that we hold the people responsible and accountable in terms of climate change and human rights. So I was just explaining the topic, what it means, and what is in the topic, and then before we give to our speakers, and I'm sure our speakers will then give us a much more focused context or content. Yeah, so that is it from me, and yeah, let me then introduce our first speaker, which is Helvi. Helvi will be, maybe I can just pose a question to you, and yeah, while I'm just doing, I'm actually just looking for my documents. Hello. Okay, just a moment. Sorry, I have a French version here with me, so I'm afraid to try and read French because I might embarrass myself. Okay, now I have the right one. Helvi, yeah. So Helvi, I will just have one question or one topic for you, and then you can come in and let us know what, your perspectives. So this is from your lived experiences on effect of expanding desert in Namibia, as you indicated earlier when you introduced yourselves. So in which ways does climate change, as it is impacting Namibia, affect the cultural norms, traditional beliefs, and other non-economic losses, factors in Namibia? So I don't know, maybe you might also want to make some examples, and also bring in some perspectives from your national laws. So you have the floor.
Okay. Again, thank you very much, Kule. As I said before, I am very much happy and excited to really be discussing on issues such as this one. Most of the time we hear a lot about the nexus of climate change and agriculture. We hear a lot about climate adaptation and mitigation measures, but little is being spoken really with regards to how climate change is affecting indigenous people in obviously the different countries. So my presentation will be a bit on climate, the nexus of climate change and how it's affecting the agricultural side in Namibia, because also I think it's one of the things you haven't mentioned when you introduced was that I founded an organization. It's called Women in Agriculture Namibia. So I work closely with women farmers in the country, and also really bringing in how it's affecting their farming life, and then also looking at indigenous women farmers, or the marginalized group of the really rural women farmers. Okay, so really, I think we all know that the desertification of Namibia is one of the most visible effects of climate change in our country. You know, we have been experiencing prolonged drought and increasing temperatures, and floods, and these are really causing our land to dry out and become very barren, which is affecting both the environment and of course the human populations. So speaking towards the topic, to say how are our cultural norms in Namibia and traditional beliefs being affected by the expanding desert in our country. So number one is the desertification of the region. You know, it has led to a loss of fertile land, first of all, and water resources, you know, which obviously had a profound impact on the lives and the livelihoods of our people in the country. And then number two, it's affecting our cultural norms and traditional beliefs through the changes in ways people obtain food. So now many people in Namibia have traditionally relied on subsistence agriculture and pastoralism to feed themselves as well as their family. But now, due to this climate changes, these are activities, you know, they are becoming increasingly difficult to sustain, and so this, it has put a very huge shift, or it has led to a shift towards more market-oriented forms of food production and consumption. So we have now a lot of Namibians, and even in the rural areas, who instead of producing their own food and you know, growing their own food and eating directly from their arable lands, they are now buying food products from the shops, which most of them are exported, you know, into the country. I want to give an example of one of the indigenous groups in Namibia, or a tribe in Namibia. They are called the Overhimba people. The Overhimba people, they live in the northern part of the country, where I am also based right now, for example. So these Himba people, they have a traditional way of life that is closely tied to the land. They rely on their livestock for food and obviously for income, and they use land for grazing and farming. Okay, so but now, because of the dry and barren land, it makes it challenging to grow crops and find sufficient grazing land for their livestock. As a result, many of these Himba people are forced to leave their ancestral lands and move to urban areas in search of work and better living conditions. Just before I joined the meeting now, I went to, we call them malls, a supermarket around here. And this is one of the really things I've seen I think they just started moving to the urban areas in sometime last year. Sometime last year, that's when these Himba people, but all those years, even before and after independence, they have remained in their ancestral lands, they have remained in their rural areas, and they were just feeding off from their cattle, you know, grazing their lands, rearing their animals there. And unfortunately now, because of climate change, arable land is no longer there. Water and rainfall is no longer there. They are forced to come and sit in front of the supermarkets with their young ones, either begging for money or for food. But one thing I like about them is they are now, they are very creative with their hands. So what they are doing there is They are now selling these wooden sticks for cooking porridge. You would call it ugali in some other African countries. That is the one they are selling. But the one thing that concerns me is, imagine someone for over 50 years back has been selling a cattle or a cow for that is worth we can say maybe $2,000. They've been selling that, and that is a huge amount of money. But because of climate change now, this person is selling a wooden spoon that is worth US dollars. That is a downgrade. In my opinion, that is a downgrade for our people because of climate change and because of the expansion of the Namibian desert, which we call the Namib Desert. So really, this is just really one of the examples that I wanted to speak of, because even when we look at these people, we say they are suffering, but back then they were not suffering. They could sell a cow that is worth $2,000, $3,000, but now they are selling something that is worth $1 because their cattle, they cannot rear the cattle anymore. They cannot grow their crops anymore. And honestly, these are really some of the devastating results that are coming up from climate change. And then also another example is these Himba people. I wish I had a picture that I could maybe present or show you, but we have two groups in Namibia. Number one, the one is the Himba, and the other one are the San people. These are people who are respected, or groups that are respected in our country because they have managed to sustain their olden way of life. And we have a lot of tourist attractions who really just want to engage in this and you see these people, but you will see now, because where there isn't that, when they move to the urban areas, so even their dress code over the years, it's going to change. They have a very nice dress code, so it just covers, for the women, it doesn't even cover this part. Almost half of the face, is not covered, but this is what we are saying is special about these people. But because now of climate change and they're moving to the urban areas, they are going to start being uncomfortable, and they will now start shifting into the dress code of the European countries and the Western countries, which is not supposed to be the point. We are now losing. So at the end of the day, as a country, we have lost our roots, where we have come from, and now adapting the beliefs and the traditional norms and the costumes of the European and the Western countries. So climate change, it goes beyond. It just goes beyond the finance. It goes the way of farming. It really also touches in it. It's affecting a lot of African countries. We are forgetting where we come from. We are forgetting our roots. These Himba people also believe in ancestor worship and practice form as ancestor for veneration, for example. But however, because of the increasing loss of the ancestral land and the migration of younger generation to the urban areas, there is a risk of losing these traditional belief systems. The younger generations are becoming less connected to their ancestral lands, and they are less likely to continue these traditional practices for their ancestors. So again, our spiritual norms, our traditional norms, we are losing them and moving towards the European ways of living because of climate change. So this is really one of the issues that I've really picked up, because when you invited me to speak on this and I saw in my own country we are experiencing this, I said, but this topic that Kulekani is inviting me to speak about, I think it's very important and it's very pertinent. But nonetheless, moving on to another form, or how Namibia, or how we are being affected by the expansion of the desert rather, it has also had an impact on our traditional beliefs and the practices surrounding water. And I'm sure this is not only in Namibia, but also could be in other African countries, that where water, it has been known as a precious resource. For example, some communities have traditionally believed that water has spiritual properties, and have developed rituals and ceremonies around its use. However, now as water becomes increasingly scarce in the country, especially in Namibia, these beliefs and practices may need to evolve and to reflect into really the new realities, and that the new cultural norms and practices will emerge to reflect changing realities of the desert. So that is the context of how the expansion of our desert is affecting us, and it's how it's affecting our costumes and our traditional beliefs. But it also has other several significant effects, which could be, for example, number one, like I said, loss of productive land. It's also affecting us with regards to soil erosion. We can also speak on biodiversity loss. We are looking at water scarcity, human displacement, and very much so increased poverty. As an example I've given before of the Himba people, someone used to earn an income of $2,000, but because of this now they're earning an income of $1 because of climate change. So it's bringing poverty and hunger to our people. So because in the interest of time, I think I was only allocated 10 minutes only. So what I'm saying overall, the expanding desert in Namibia, it has a significant environmental, social, and economic impact, and addressing these issues is really essential for promoting sustainable development, and of course improving the well-being of the affected communities. Namibia is experiencing the effects of climate change, like I said, including the droughts. We recently just had the floods. Now as we speak, I'm in the northern part of the country, but I am now an unemployed farmer because my plot of vegetable is underwater, and unfortunately I cannot do anything until it dries up a little bit. So really that was the context of how the expanding desert has really changed our traditional norms and our agricultural way of farming. Thank you, Kule. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Helvi. And what you've just shared with us is really I think it's a touching stories, because they speak about what is happening with our people, but not us being apart from them, because we are also experiencing those. And then just before I go on, I'd like to highlight maybe two things that you talked about. One of them is migration, climate migration, when people are looking for better lives, they are migrating from one city or from one country to another, just looking for good jobs and looking for better lives. And not because we cannot do anything for our own where we are, but because we are unable, we do not have access to fertile land. For instance, as you are saying, we do not have access to fertile land because the droughts that we are having are just deepening, they're just expanding. The desert that we are having, they're just expanding, And then you also talked about the issue which relates to water and our spiritual life here in Africa. As someone that has a background in theology, I know what it means to just not have water when you need to practice some of your beliefs. You know, a day before yesterday, I was in Johannesburg. We attended a meeting with the Presidential Climate Commission here in South Africa, and we invited faith leaders. And one of the commissioners, we had a discussion with him. He said that imagine if there is no water, for instance, church leaders or pastors would not be able to baptize anyone. And you know, these are the things that are not so significant if you bring them to the international talks, because again, there's no quantifiable evidences that can say we're losing our identity, and by us losing our identity, it means that we don't have access to life, basically, because that's what life means for us, right? So I just needed to indicate that before I invite Abel from Mozambique. Abel, I hope you can still share with us some of your experiences and some of the experiences lived by the Mozambicans there, especially, looking at what happened in the past few years and what is happening. You are at a region where that is very prone to different cyclones. I think almost every year there's a season of cyclone that is hitting Madagascar and Mozambique because of that region. Maybe you might want to share us some of the implications that you have there where you live. So yeah, you have the floor.
Thank you, Kulekani. It's really, really nice to be here with you, to share with you how Mozambique has been suffering by cyclones and floods these last years. Allow and accept my apologies because my English is so bad. So I request you to make some effort to really understand the intention of my words. So firstly, I would say that climate change is really, really a big challenge in the world. It's also a big challenge in Africa and in Mozambique, my country. And Mozambique is one of most vulnerable countries in the world. There is geographical location. So we are already in front of the ocean, in the ocean. So everything, all floods, all cyclones, all winds, it comes and affect us first, then go to the hinterland. So the last few years, we have seen much work of the spy for Mozambican in general, because the loss and damages caused by natural phenomena like cyclone, floods, in some cases by droughts, have negatively and significantly affected the lives of population, especially young people, children, women, not ignoring the other species that are part of our ecosystems. And this ecosystem that have been giving this contribute to ensure that food security in our communities are ready. So we say that loss and damage is affecting and is violating human rights, with greater emphasis in children and young people, and also in women and other disability people. If we look in our last 4 years, we will see that we had more than 500 schools destroyed. We had more than 100 hospitals destroyed. And what happened when we destroyed school because of cyclones, because of ice, means that this school will be closed. So if the school is closed, or if the school is a resettlement center for communities that our houses are affected by, it means that we will be viewing, we are bringing some prohibition. It means that students must not study. Why? Because the school is not available for lessons, but is only available because, okay, part of schools are not working because they are affected by floods. The schools that are nice or are not affected are working like are becoming resettlement centers for people coming from affected areas. So it means that all of us, or all of young people, are affected by these issues. The same happens with hospitals. Some hospitals looking for this, like I said, we had more than 100 hospitals that are closed because they are affected by cyclones. So it means that even if we try to understand, we got people who need a frequent assistance in their communities. They must go to hospital every week to have some medicine. We got chronic ills. We got sexual and reproductive health for young people, especially for girls, that they need assistance. That so we are being with this issue, we cannot do nothing. And if we cannot assist these young people, if we don't assist these girls, if we don't assist these chronic years by another medicals, what happens with them? So it means that the right of health and medical care is also being violated by cyclones. So if we count looking for statistics, that means that in this last cyclone, we have affected more than 12 million people in Mozambique. In this last 12 million people was affected. So if 12 million people was affected, it means that accounting also, we had more than 1,500 people was killed, counting from Idai, from Gineo, we had Idai, we got Gineo, we had Kenneth, now we got Fred, you see. And Fred is also coming again today. Today, Fred is affecting Mozambique in Zambezia, Nampula, and also Cabo Delgado. Is hitting Mozambique right now. I'm talking with you. So it means that we must take serious this issue. We already had more than, like I said, more than 1,500 people killed. We had a lot of places, a lot of homes, a lot of houses, a lot of vehicles, a lot of business, a lot of bridges, a lot of roads, a lot of different actions that make people living, that was destroyed by floods, was destroyed by cyclones. So we have one of which that is very, very, very terrible. We also had cemeteries destroyed. You must imagine what is destruction of some cemeteries, that a woman burns and newly buried bodies, people dragged and in water and scattered around houses. Sometimes we must go and collect this to put it in different public places. is not something good. And how is our psychological health for young people, for children, for a lot of people who had the opportunity to see this kind of thing, how it affecting that woman rights are also affected by different ways. It means that the right of good health is affected. The right of education is affected. The right of also food is also affected, because people stay long time out of their homes, other people on the trees waiting for some helicopter or waiting for something to come and assist taking to the security place. So we got a lot of rights that are also violated by cycle. So we have been fighting with our government. Why? Because we understand that we got people, we got subject of rights, but we also had subject of obligation. All citizens or all people must be defended by government. So it means that we have been working at different levels, that our African government, our Mozambican government at different levels must ensure, must defend the human rights of the people. Firstly, because must understand and prioritize the political commitment and also concrete actions that you can make sure that how are they giving contribution to climate justice in the governance plan. But to be possible, all of this action, we must ensure that the government is really having now skills to know that climate justice is really understand that loss and damage must be is destroying the future of our investment, is wasting all taxes, all investment that people in our individual effort are doing to bring a better life, and every year is destroyed by cyclones, destroyed by floods. So all community, international community must understand. And also all population must also be engaged to fight for full enjoy of their rights to live in a health and environment, but first as the first people. This is one of, we have been fighting to bring you all medias, journalists, local communities, authorities to understand, because some areas that people are affected are places that are already identified that this is not a secure place to build a house. Please just move. So we must ensure that all young people who are still looking for lands to build their house must find a good and safe place to make a good life, to ensure that in case of floods, in case of cyclone, will not be more affected. Because now all of us, there is no poor, there is no rich, there is no political, there is no, all of us, we are affected. Who is in Mozambique, who is in Malawi, who, even Mr. President, even all of us were being affected by different ways, but all of us were being affected. So it means that must be commitment of all of us to work and defend the human rights first, and secondly, and ensure that our governments, our governance plan, in our organization, in our individual actions, me as a citizen, what am I doing to bring contribution, to contribute to impact and defend the human rights? What am I doing to reduce the impact of loss and damage? Where will I choose the place to build my house? What kind of house will I build that will not be affected in the this kind of actions is what we're doing with young people to understand, to make them understand that what kind of life they must choose for their future. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Abel. I think those are a very significant sentiments because, you know, yeah, it just talks about what is currently happening, what is currently being experienced, and what should be happening in terms of women's rights and so on. But one thing that has just stick on me very, very hard was when you talked about the cyclone that is happening right now as we speak. And to me, I am, I'm just reminded by one of the things that I used to say when I talk about the climate change impact. For instance, if there's something very devastating coming in the country or in a certain community, I used to say, imagine having to wait for something that will possibly take your life. Science tells us that we will experience so much of these things, but imagine being told that tomorrow or a few days from now, cyclone will be in your area and it will destroy your properties. It will possibly kill, some of your people. Imagine basically just waiting for, I'm sorry if this sounds very sensitive, but imagine just waiting for your death, basically, because we don't know if we will survive. And then if you survive now, and then you would be told that next year it's coming, so you just have to wait for it, but these are lived experiences, and these are lived limitations to our right to life, to our right to healthy and protected environment. So thank you very much for that. Let me see if I would have questions, and I think we have way less than two. We've taken a lot of our time. I think we have 10 minutes or less, very less. My colleagues will assist me. Do we have any questions from the participants before we move on? Maybe I can just take 5 seconds to be quiet a bit. You are welcome to type a question in the chat. And awesome, thanks, Nicole. So you're welcome, anyone welcome to type a question in the chat, and you can just type it in. There's a section, there's a thing that says Q&A. Yes, you can write a question there. All right. Can I just continue with this discussion a bit? And now I know that our speakers are also activists, especially in the civil society space. There's something very common with the countries that have coasts. South Africa, Mozambique, if you go this side, but if you go that side, you have Namibia. And it's very unfortunate that we don't have anyone else from, especially, maybe from the north or from central. We couldn't get them as speakers, and Ahmed has connectivity challenges. So there's something very interesting that is happening with our coast. A few years ago, some experts, they said that we have a big oil in our oceans, and currently there are pursuit for some companies to do oil drilling or the offshore seismics so that they can get this oil. And I'm mentioning that because I know that there are lawsuits in South Africa. There's about 2 lawsuits that have taken place to push back against that, and I know that in Namibia something like that happened. Not sure which year, but a few years ago. I'm not sure if, Helvi, you are aware of that. And in Mozambique, definitely there. But in Mozambique, obviously there are complex issues. There are political and geopolitical issues, especially with the capital issues. But the matters are about people wanting to continue with the gas and oil in Africa, and that is in the lawsuit And we know what oil does. That's fossil fuels. It just continues to cause global warming in our environment, and then continues to cause all these devastations. So my question then is, maybe you might want to respond to this question and also do some kind of a closing marks. What do you think we can do as civil society organizations just to push back against what is not necessary? And I'm saying that deliberately because because of the debate. Helvi knows about this African debate about just transition and so on, and obviously you, Abel. What can civil society do in order for us to put pressure on pushing back against what is not necessary, and especially against fossil fuel in Africa? And then through the legal court, obviously, when there is a lawsuit, what do you think we can do? I mean, maybe one of the things that we can do is just to voice out ourselves in different ways. But yeah, you can let us know what you think. But then now I'm asking in the context of looking into just making sure that we do have some content in terms of making sure that in the global context, which applies to our domestic context, we have a very good framework for protecting our human right. Not sure if that question was very clear, but I can give each of you one, but not more than 2 minutes. You can just give us your quick thought, because obviously you were not you were prepared for this topic. It's just that I'm only bringing it now. Let me start by Abel, and now I need to end with Helvi. Abel, what do you think?
Thank you for this question. I think from now I will not give my position. Why? Because at local level, we are doing a lot of discussions. In the world, we got the polluters who polluted, who developed their countries before. They explored a lot of gas. They did a lot of, they explored a lot of natural and mineral resources in different countries and polluted the world. And today we are suffering by the impact. And now, last year, Mozambique discovered that got some reserves of gas and get some opportunity to explore it, to strengthen the economy, to develop the communities, etc. So what we have been discussing is, will be difficult to say no exploration, yes, in Mozambique, because the decision is already taken by the government. But we also understand that civil society got opinion, and his voice must be and is listening by actors, different stakeholders. Is ensure that all technologies we are using, or all technologies that must be used, must reduce a lot the level of pollution of the ocean, must reduce the maximum the level of pollution of the global level. So we've been working with our government to ensure that the pollution must be reduced. Even if you analyze in our national communication on NDCs we did last year, Mozambique is one of the countries that got a very reduced level of pollution in the world. So we've been working with our government that we must advocate for what we are doing. We cannot advocate on something and do another thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's very true, and I'm happy because you're bringing another perspective from how we think about our government, yeah, which has obviously different interests. So thank you very much for that, Abel. Helvi.
Kule, thank you. You know, and as you said, I think this is the oil topic is most of the time a very I don't know, you have to talk, but like especially in Namibia, there's a lot of conflict of interest going on, and you know, with regards to Namibia, there has been recent oil discoveries. So as we speak, Namibia has been, you know, receiving a lot of visitors, and obviously not not from the African continent, because of these esteemed oil discovery in some part of our country. You know, there has been talks around it, looking at both the environmental impacts and, you know, what some of the CSOs have been doing, the civil societies have been doing. You know, there's quite a lot of discussions happening, and right now I think the amount of oil that has been discovered in Namibia would be about, I think they said around 6.5 billion barrels of oil equivalent to the, you know, recoverable reserves. So you see, it's the topic is really still new, and we have been getting a lot of attention, and now this is where us as civil societies, especially in the country, need to start or have been doing a lot of advocacy work, you know, before the situation goes out of hand. Because just imagine if they have now discovered oil in the country, in the upcoming years, what would have Namibia turned into, and all the considering the environmental impacts and all of this. So of advocacy work, also doing a lot of monitoring. So a lot of SEOs have been monitoring the activities of the oil companies that are operating in Namibia. What have they been up to? Are they, you know, are they complying with the local laws and regulations, and of course the international standard for environmental and obviously social responsibilities. I know of certain organizations that have also been doing research and analysis with regards to this so-called oil that has been discovered in our country, and I think the CSOs at this point, we can only stand in with doing a lot of also community engagement, especially the communities around that area where the oil has been discovered, because now also this could affect them, that maybe they might be deported or removed from the area and go stay somewhere else. You know, all of this issues. So a lot of community engagements and capacity and engagements with these communities, you know, really, I think they need to be done. But it's a very hot topic. I will tell you, it's a very hot topic currently in Namibia, and really the attention we have been receiving. We have seen them, they've been coming to visit our country, you know, just sneaking up to check and all of this. But we'll continue. We'll see how far, because we still haven't gotten the exact results. Sometimes it just could be people speaking sometimes, but they have been doing their assessments and all of this. But once we have a really clear outcome, I think we'll be in a better position, as well as us as CEOs, CSOs, to really come and maybe try to be involved in the whole matter.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
Kule.
yes, thank you so much for that perspective. Yeah, it's very interesting. You know, it's I fully understand how complex the issue is, and I'm trying to think of it, you know, within this context of human rights and the climate change laws, you know, legal framework. I think this this topic or this perspective that you're giving us has something to do with the result of the talks under UNFCCC, you know, the carbon trade and the non-market and market approaches, those ones, those technical things that are being discussed there, and many others, you know, when it comes to practical, to the really lived lives. That is how you know, we have to work around those, and then we get to the issues of environmental dignity and so on. Yeah, but thank you so much for that. And thank you so much, colleagues. Let me do the last two items, which will be in 2 minutes or one. So first of all, this is just for me to say that from now, there will be another session. So another session will be for, I'm sorry, I don't have the program with me, but there's going to be another session because this is a 12-hour interdialogue, interregional dialogue. So I'm very happy, and me and my colleagues were definitely happy that we also had the chance from Africa to moderate this session, but also to have a space where we can engage with everybody in the same platform. And second of all, and now this is about Africa. Next week we'll have another meeting, but it will be with our campaigners here, which we will communicate. If you are interested, or if there are law students that are interested, just reach out to me. I'll give you more details. You join us, we have more conversation. And then there is a draft resolution in the United Nations that will be considered before the end of this month on taking the issue of climate change to the International Court of Justice. We can also share that information. You can also go to this website, which I will share in the chat. And then yeah, so you will learn more information about that. And so this is just information sharing for those who might want to exit here, but please do not exit. There's more conversations that will be happening here that are more interesting. And yeah, stay in touch. And the closure for me is to appreciate our speakers. First of all, Helvi and Abel, thank you so much for joining us in this webinar and for agreeing to be our guest speakers. And we hope that we will be in touch in the future, from now on and in the future. And we're hoping that the World Youth for Climate Justice will still be connected with you and other stakeholders also. I want to appreciate Ahmed Fathi in his absence. He was one of our invited speakers, but could not join because of connectivity problems. We appreciate his willing to also be part of us here. And appreciation to Professor Bond and Professor Lumumba, Bond from South Africa and Lumumba from Kenya, that I am in touch with, and I'm happy that we have the people of such calibers that have responded to some of our messages asking for support. Thanks to the participants, thanks to the team, the technical team, and once again I apologize that we started later than we wanted to because of my issues with my mic. So thank you to everyone, and yeah, I am saying from me, from this session, cheers, and we will see you in the next session. Yeah, I think one of the colleagues here should give me a directive. Should we exit, or the next session is starting now? What's happening?
Okay, so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, and you too. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Kulikani. So again, we will have a 30-minute break, and then we will be back for the North America session, which will start in about 30 minutes. So if you want to stay logged in for that, you're welcome to do so. Thank you again for the wonderful session, Abel, Helvi, and for the amazing facilitation, Kulikani, as usual.